So, welcome students. Today's class we will start with a new chapter, cost accounting, new subject. This is a very important and easy subject. So, in this, you will learn the fundamentals of cost accounting. First, let's understand what is the syllabus. So, both CA and CMA has this cost accounting. So, it is broadly classified into three. So, first is the introduction, where you will learn what is cost ascertainment, how cost is recorded, how cost bookkeeping is done, what are the various cost accounting standards. In the second, you will learn different methods of costing, which are job, batch, contract, process, and operating. So, all these five are important. In the third section, you will learn cost accounting techniques such as marginal, standard, and budgetary control. So, when it comes to this particular section, it is very important to learn this because from marks perspective as well as when you go into a career where you have to present to the management various statistical data, this is very important. And marginal and standard costing is again repeated in uh, some other subjects also. So let's start with fundamentals. So these are very basic. First, you should know what is cost, then what is cost accounting, why is it important, and what is cost accountancy. So let's start with what is cost. In simple terms, it is nothing but the amount of expenditure. So this can be actual or notional. So it represents the resources that has been used to manufacture a product or a service. In monetary terms, simple. What is cost accounting? It involves classification, recording, allocation, appropriation. All this you will learn going forward. So cost accounting is a recording of all these in a proper way, and it ends with presentation of statistical data. Why is it important for an organization? The organization wants to improve the profitability and efficiency. Cost accounting, the detail of cost of a product is very important. To arrive at selling price, uh, usually selling price is determined by the market. To match the market price, whether I will be still profitable, whether I will be efficient, all this detail is available through cost account books. What is costing? It is a technique of process and ascertaining cost. Ascertain means to find out. So what is the scope of cost accounting? This can be a theoretical question for 4 or 5 marks. But rather than marks, let's understand what are the basic thing you will do as a cost accountant or when you become an ACMA. First and foremost is cost ascertainment. Means you will find out cost. How you will find out? First you will record the data, then you will put it into a format or standards, then you compute, then you arrive at the total cost of the product or the service. Cost accounting is nothing but you record the data and it ends with preparation of a report to the management. So there are set procedures and there are rules. So you have to follow that while doing cost accounting. Third is analysis of the cost. In this, as a cost accountant, what you will do, you will look at the data you have prepared or some other cost accountant has prepared and look at whether is there a difference or variance with respect to the budget or with respect to the previous year and why there is a difference, what I can do about it, what report I can prepare, what recommendation I can give it to the management. All this is part of analysis of cost. This is a very intellectual process where not only the subject will help, also how good you are at looking at the data. Next is cost control. So you have now found out what is the root cause of the difference. Then you will introduce measures or some procedures or some changes in the organization so that as per the budget, your product cost is within that limit. Then next is preparation of cost report. This is mandatory for certain organization depending on the turnover of the organization. So cost report is usually prepared by the junior accountant, but as a cost accountant ACMA, you will validate all of that and correct the data. So that is why looking at the cost report is also a talent. Then last but the important is cost audit. So whatever I told from A to E is related if you are going for a job. This is important. But this has a different fan base altogether. This is when you practice, you will be doing cost audit as a practicing cost accountant. So for that, you should know A to E in depth. And also, you should have practiced under a cost accountant so that you know how to validate or verify the correctness of these accounts. So typically, you should start here for 2 to 3 years. Then you should take risk and do practicing. Means you should look at cost audit. Now we'll address why there is a separate stream for cost accounting. So usually the financial accounts, what do they deal with? They deal with the overall financial position of a company, whereas the cost account deals with the profitability of a product. Okay, this is at an organization level, but this is at a product or a service. That is the major difference. Let's say if there is a company, car manufacturer. So Maruti Suzuki financial accounting deals with how the sales of that company is going on. What is the operating cost? What is EBITDA? All that will come under financial accounting. But Maruti Suzuki as an organization is manufacturing so many variants of cars. So each car is a product. Cost account deals with the profitability, the cost of that individual products. That means if there are 100 products, you will have to prepare the cost sheet for 100 products. That is the fundamental difference between financial accounting and cost accounting. Next is in financial accounting, you record everything in terms of money. But in cost accounting, it need not be everything in terms of money. So you will deal with what is the production, what is the man hour, what is the overhead rate, is there a loss, is there a what is the percentage, efficiency, all that need not be only in monetary terms. Third major thing, valuation of stock, financial accounting says at cost or at NRV. However, in cost accounting, valuation is always at cost. Then fourth is it does not provide information about efficiency of production. It provides valuable information in terms of is there a variance, is there an abnormal loss, all the things you will calculate in cost accounts. Financial accounting is mandatory for all firms and companies, but cost accounting is not mandatory. It is depending on certain sectors, and there is a threshold turnover, and there are certain HSN codes. Based on these, cost accounting maintenance of records and audit will be applicable. This you will learn in other groups. Financial accounting is usually reported at the end of accounting period. So it can be quarterly, or it can be half yearly, or it can be yearly. Cost accounting is frequently prepared and monitored, and the returns are filed at the on a yearly basis. So these are the major difference between cost accounting and financial accounting. Let us understand at a macro level what is a cost. So we will go to elements of cost. In simple terms, element of cost is nothing but what total cost is made up of. So when we classify the cost, it can be broadly consisting of material, labor, and expense. Further, they are subdivided into direct and indirect. All direct put together is called as prime cost. All indirect put together is called as overhead. This is to simplify. So if anyone asks you what is the prime cost of this, means you have to add all direct material, direct labor, direct expense. You will get prime cost. Let us understand what is this direct and indirect. How do you classify whether it is direct or it is indirect? A direct cost is directly attributed to a cost object, and it can be calculated in an economically feasible way, and it can also be measured easily, and it forms a part of finished goods. Example, the chassis of a car, seat, battery, all of these are directly going into a product. They are part of the product. And also they can also be measured. Like there is one chassis, there are four seats, there is one battery. It can be measured in an economically feasible way. Whereas the indirect material is that material which does not form part of the end product, or it cannot be measured easily. For example, the grease and lubricant, even though they form part of the end product, it cannot be measured. For example, in a factory, they will buy lubricants and drums, and then they will allocate or apportion to each product. It is not they will purchase one drum and they'll put it to one car. Hence, it is indirect material. The same logic applies to your labor also. You have direct labor and indirect labor. Direct labor are usually who work directly on the product. For example, the factory workers, production team, the inspector who inspect the finished good, the person who's working in the assembly line. All these workers are directly contributing to the product. Whereas the indirect labor, the examples are given here, accounts, purchase, or the general management. They work for the organization. They do not work for one single product. Hence, what happens? There is a concept called cost apportionment. So the cost associated with this indirect cost are apportioned to this product. This we will learn going forward. For right now, you understand they are not directly attributed. Means they are working for the organization but not necessarily for a single product. So that is the major difference. Expenses also in the same way. The direct expenses are directly related to the product. The examples are given here. Transfer of technology. Let's say the car manufacturer has purchased the TOT from a German company for the engine. So that engine is particularly used in one variant of the car. So this becomes a direct expense for that car. For example, another example is royalty fee. So transfer of technology is basically a one-time payment to purchase the technology. Whereas royalty fee is as I produce, I will give a portion of that to the original technology person. So that is royalty. Indirect expenses are all other expenses like your factory lease or factory rent, factory insurance, your branding expenses. All these are not necessarily for one particular product. It is for the organization, correct? So the factory in which there are two or three variants of the cars are produced. So that is not necessarily for a one single product. Hence, these are all indirect expenses. We will learn some basic definition related to cost accounting. This can come in your 1 mark or MCQ type of question, but let us understand it in a fundamental way. First is cost object. What is cost object? It is nothing but a technical name given to product or a service. That's all. So in a car organization, the car is a product. Okay. So in a mobile manufacturing company, mobile is the cost object. Next is the cost center. So cost center can be a location, person, or an equipment where that organization wants to monitor the cost. For example, a tire manufacturing company. It can have two or three factories. So each factory, the different location will be a cost center. Then person. So department wise, when they are manufacturing a tire, there will be a production department, there will be stores, there will be purchase. So all these can be a cost center. Then equipment. Within the factory, there may be 10 different type of machines or equipment. They can be cost center. So how to define a cost center is left to that company. Based on their requirement, where they want to monitor the cost, they will define what is a cost center. So when you have become an ACMA and you're visiting a factory as a cost auditor, or you're joined as a cost accounting executive, you should first understand what are these cost center in that organization. So that is very, very important. Then cost units, it is unit of measurement that is used. Okay, so in tire manufacturing company, it will be number of tires produced. In car, it will be number of car. But if you go to steel, it is not number of steel, it is metric ton of steel. If it is an oil refinery, it will be kiloliter or megaliter of petroleum produced. So these are the unit of measurement. Next is cost allocation, very, very important. So I will teach you the difference between cost allocation and cost apportionment together. Okay. So you have allocation. So let's take an example of car chassis. So one chassis goes to one car. So directly, correct? So this is allocation. So there is an example. Let's say there is a factory. In that factory, only one type of car is produced. So the electricity charge, it's a expense. It is not material, it is not labor. So it comes under expense. So when you have to assign this cost to the cost object, for example, here it is a sedan car. 1,000 units are produced. How will you allocate this when there is only one type of object and there is a cost? This direct relationship is called as allocation. Why allocation? Because there is only one type of cost object. The quantity may be whatever, and you have a cost. This is example of cost allocation. When you go to cost apportionment, what is cost apportionment? Take the same example. Here you will have, instead of sedan cars, let's say they manufacture SUV cars also. So in that case, this cost will be split between sedan and SUV cars. That is apportion. Apportion means a portion of the expenses you will charge to the cost objects. So by definition, what it is? The allotment of proportion of the items to cost centers. This is cost apportionment. How do they apportion? So there will be certain predetermined basis. So basis is very, very important. Please note this word. Basis is very important. For example, rent of office and factory. So what will be the basis? Square feet occupied by that production line. Electricity and water charges. What is the basis? Kilowatt hour used by those production centers. Telephone expenses. What can be the basis? Number of telephone connections, extensions in the that cost center. So this is the cost apportionment. Let's also look at an example. We will take the same example where there is a cost, electricity charges. This is an expense, correct? This is not material, not labor, but an expenses. Since it is being shared by three different type of cost object, so this also can be a cost center. This expense is now indirect. Indirect means it is overhead. So this overhead you are apportioning based on what? Based on the output. Output here is 200 unit, 500 unit and 300 unit. That means 1 lakh rupee you will be apportioning to SUV in what basis? 1 lakh divided by 200 divided by 1000. So that will be 20% of this cost. 20,000 will go here, then 50% will go here, then 30% will go here. So right now the cost has gone to these cost centers, okay, where they produce sedan, SUV and hatchback. So this is the second important definition you should understand. So you have cost allocation where it is direct. So this is cost allocation. Then you have cost apportion. Here this is a portion will go to each cost object or cost center. Then next is cost absorption. What is cost absorption? Now you have apportioned or allocated the cost. It has to be charged to each product. How it will be charged to each product? So here for 200 cars, you have charged 20,000 rupees, correct? So that means per car you have to convert. So that will be cost absorption. Means 20,000 rupee divided by 200 will be 100 per car. So that is your cost absorption.